vibration of creation, the cosmic hum. The eternal cyclic rhythm of earth, moon, and sun. Earth song is the ancient conversation between shore and sea. The love ballad between flower and bee. Earth song is the melody of mountains that rise and fall.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to another interview in Embody The Empress, where we are looking at traditional wisdom for modern women who want to blossom and flourish in harmony with the natural world. My name is Edwina Murphy-Droomer, and I am here with AmyLee Westervelt. I have been watching Amy's work for a couple of years now. We're in the same mastermind, and everything that she does just immediately pulls me in. Amy is a trailblazing voice in the personal development arena, and she guides women, I think women mostly, maybe it's women and men, in really profound alignment and empowerment. So I am super excited to have the opportunity to record this interview with you, Amy. Thank you, AmyLee. Thank you so much for being with me.
I'm just glowing. I was saying before we started, I love hanging out with you, Edwina, and your energy is amazing. So thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
It's a pleasure. So I think, like as a real mama bear, I obviously noticed two things predominantly. I mean, firstly, that you're so strikingly beautiful. It's very hard not to get drawn in and watch everything that you do. But the way that you speak about your relationship with your husband is just so magnetic and inspiring. It's beautiful. And obviously your relationship with your beautiful 5 children as well is, just gives a rounder picture of this extraordinary woman that you are. But where I want to start your story and learn about you is thinking about AmyLee as that sort of 21, leaving school, early days of womanhood, and who you were as you launched yourself into womanhood. Did you have a clear picture of being a mum with a huge tribe of children and being an entrepreneur, or did your journey start somewhere very different?
Nobody's ever actually asked me this before, so it's going to take me a moment to gather my thoughts. I have the emotions, but the thoughts, I think that from the time I was a very little girl, I thought that I had something about me. Like when I was 3, I thought maybe I was the Messiah, right? Like I always had this weird energy. I was never one of the cool girls. I was the only girl who rushed sororities, who didn't get picked for any. That was awful. I had quite a few experiences being the ugly duckling. I had a hard time getting a boyfriend in high school. I had a boyfriend that was out of town. And so when I was 21, I was just getting back from working in Walt Disney World, where no one knew me and no one knew my history or how nerdy I was, or, where I came from. I did have a very Jewish last name, which I didn't realize until I was probably maybe 17, 18, that people could tell that I had Jewish heritage by my name, because I was just so naive. And when I went away to Disney, that's when I really blossomed. I was 20 years old. I took a break from college for a semester, and I went there, and all of a sudden I wasn't AmyLee anymore. I was Boston, because I had a Boston accent. I was from Boston, Massachusetts. So it's the closest city. You can't really tell people where you're from. When you're from Massachusetts, if somebody else is from Massachusetts, they'll want to know where you're from. They'll say, oh, where or what part? But if they're not from Massachusetts, then you just say Boston, and that's enough for them, right? So I was Boston, and the boys they were into me then. And I remember being so boy crazy and just constantly having somebody I had my eye on. And I don't know that really kind of ever left me. I just always have been fascinated by the masculine. I feel like we all have life questions. And when I was a young girl, my life question was, did Romeo love Juliet because she was Juliet? Or did he love her because she loved him back? I really wanted to know the answer to that. And I've always had this fascination, and maybe that's my Scorpio stellium, but I've always had this fascination with like the infatuating love, like the kind that's like Angelina and Billy Bob, where they're wearing the, vial of blood around their necks or whatever. And so, yeah, I think that I desperately wanted to be loved and to be adored and to have somebody be devoted to me. And I threw myself at so many of the wrong people. I married the wrong guy when I don't even know how old I was. I kind of blocked that out. But, I wanted that so deeply that I was willing to settle for a lot less. And it wasn't until I was 29 years old that I met my now husband. And it was just, I wish I could have 1 minute of that feeling, of that moment, the whirlwind romance that we had. But yeah, up until that point, there was a culminating moment where I was no longer available to be somebody's leftovers. I was no longer available. I would be alone before I would ever be with somebody that didn't give me what I deserved. And it's like the universe went, there it is. And maybe 2 weeks later, I met my now husband, and it's been absolute bliss ever since.
I think it's fascinating that you had that thought about Romeo and Juliet, because I did that for many years and ended up married to somebody I shouldn't have been married to because of that. I was in relationships with people because they liked me, and I was just really grateful that somebody liked me. So similar to your story, perhaps, I was always the outsider at school, and from sort of year 9 onwards, for us, that's like 14.
We would have been besties, Edwina.
Yeah, I would like to think so, except I was 10 years older than you. So I would be
not in the continuum.
Yeah, I'd be the big sister. But I have, my whole life story has been about being, the square peg in the right round hole. I never fit in anywhere. It's like, why don't I fit in? And it wasn't until much later that I realized the beauty of not fitting in. But that idea and that maturity, or that insight to be aware of that at a young age, I admire that hugely. I didn't even pick that up about myself until I was much older. And I love the journey of becoming the you, becoming the more authentic, the most authentic you, is when you find the correct partner, which was my story as well. But I was 42 when that happened, when I met my now husband. But, with this conversation, I feel like, just to set the scene and to give the audience a really clear theme of what we're going to be focusing on today, it is this understanding and of the masculine and feminine energy that we hold within ourselves, and also that we amplify in other people through who we're being. But I think, you've got such a unique way of looking at this and talking about this. I think it's super empowering.
You didn't run away screaming, so that's good.
So let's look at that. I'll be guided by you. Perhaps if we continue the story process from your life story, how did you evolve from working at Disney to doing the work that you do now? What was the journey?
So I worked at Disney for a semester. I worked at Pirates of the Caribbean. I was one of the people that ran the ride. And I think that, I feel like there's a lot of opportunism in the coaching space where people are like, oh, this is a good way to make money. I wanted to do this work since I was a little girl. I have always been the therapist to all my parents' friends. Like, I mean, they'll say, no, you weren't, but I was. And, my big sister, who is 10 years older than me, I helped her with some of her stuff, and I was her personal stylist. And I could win the $1 billion tomorrow and I would still do this. This is in my blood. Like, I love the work that I do. But, as far as the online coaching space goes, that was more of a foray for me into the law of attraction and feeling so head over heels in love with The Secret and the law of attraction, and feeling like, see, when I know something is amazing, I can't keep it to myself. And knowing, like, nothing lights me up more than finding someone who wants a thing and having that thing and being able to bring those two together. Like, I love to be, I don't even need to be, like, I always say, I could have a paper bag over my head when I'm coaching. I don't need to be the hero. And I think that's and I wrote a post about this recently. I think that's one of the reasons why I've never really was one of those gurus, because I can't take on that energy. I can't take people's power. If you try to be like, you're so amazing. No, you're amazing. I'm reflecting that amazingness to you.
Yes.
Anyway, so I was in this multi-level marketing company. I did really well for myself. I had a giant team, and it was an opportunity for me to share the law of attraction and all those yummy things. Then the company kind of went in a different direction than I did. And so I ended up leaving. And so that kind of happened. And I wanted, I still wanted to do the coaching thing. So I became a coach. That was in 2018. And one of the things that had to happen as a result. So when I was in this multi-level marketing company, continuing this story, when I was in the multi-level marketing company, my husband didn't have to do anything. He had just gotten out of the military, so he didn't have to work. I was making 6 figures a month. Before people were making 6 figures a month, I was making 6 figures a month. And my husband didn't have to work. We had a nanny, we had a cook, we had a chef, we had a housekeeper, we had all the things. And he completely lost who he was. He didn't really hold the masculine frame anymore. And we did not get along then. I was just so burnt out. I remember we were making $100,000 a month, and we got our electric shut off because we didn't pay it. If that isn't like a whoa moment, my husband he had completely lost himself. Yeah. And it wasn't until, leaving this MLM, but also I ended up watching the movie 50 Shades of Grey. Don't judge me. And and I recognized how deeply activated I was by the idea of being able to drop into my feminine.
Yeah.
And to have my husband be in the masculine. Mm-hmm. So what I did was I told him about this, and I told him, and we tried to kind of role play this for a while. But what you end up doing when you try to role play, especially power dynamics, you end up messing it up, and you do what's called topping from the bottom. So I would get so excited for him to be the masculine and for me to be able to be submissive that I was inadvertently being the masculine from the position of the submissive, which was awful. Well, we finally kind of ironed that out a little bit, but it was very dependent on my part. Like I had dumbed myself down to the point where I made myself dependent on him. And then he decided to do a water fast. And he was doing this spiritual water fast for 40 days. He did it too. And when that happened, this man who had learned how, because that's really all it is, he learned how to be this dominant energy in my life. And here I am running my business and everything's going well. And everything that he had given me, he just kind of sucked away because of this ordeal. It was like he was at the top of a mountain, even though he was sleeping next to me. So there was no intimacy. There was no connection. He had receded into himself like you'd expect to do during a water fast. Edwina, I went freaking crazy. I didn't exist without this masculine person who was the reflection of my partnership. You understand? Like, I wasn't there. If a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, right? I was the tree falling in the woods and no one cared. And I lost my freaking mind. And I wasn't going to cheat on him because that's not what you do.
Yeah.
But I had found this energy and I needed it so deeply. So what did I do? I went into my own self and I imagined that I was walking around at night when I would go to sleep with this energy. And this energy would take me on walks. He was kind of like a newsboy from the 1800s or something. It's kind of cute. And he'd take me on walks and we'd talk about the day. And I would tell him about everything that happened. And he would tell me about how beautiful I was and how he saw me do this and he saw me do that. And he was so proud of me. It was very platonic at first.
Yeah.
And that continued for almost the whole duration of my husband's water fast. And I found that I was so excited to go to bed at night because I could not wait to meet up with this energy. And I found that that energy started to give me like advice, started to tell me like, hey, do this, don't do this. These, you know, these are good ideas. These are bad ideas. And it started to kind of like be someone for me to talk to during the day. And I remember one day I went for a walk and I just started speaking out the things that this energy was saying, like answering myself. And they were really smart. And they were really like things that I would never say out loud. And when my husband was done with his fast, I didn't feel resentful. I didn't feel like you left me. I was so whole and I was so connected to myself that I was like, how was it? Was it amazing? And that moment when he came back, I was this whole woman. I had found a way to internally sustain myself in such a deep and powerful way that I just made him want me even more. And all of a sudden, he's putting his hand on the small of my back and he's asking me if I'm okay and can I get a drink of water and do I want this and and he wants to fool around more. All these things where I'd been throwing myself at him. Please love me, please want me, please dominate me, right? It was like that all came naturally for him. So I start doing my research because that's what I do. I did my research and I come to find out that this energy that I had connected to is what's called the animus, as Carl Jung calls it. And it's basically the polarized energy of your shadow, of your inner other. And there's a lot of ways to figure out the actual like specifics of this energy, which I'll tell you about my free gift later. You guys will love it. But that energy, who told me his name was Eros, was my masculine counterpart. And I remember saying to him one time, you know, after I got over the craziness of this, I said, is this like in some way violating my marriage? And not like without missing a beat, he said, Goddess, you know, like taxes, you know how like you pay your taxes before they give you your paycheck? You are mine before you're ever his. Your relationship with me is pre-tax. And then whatever's left after, that's what you share with him. But you and I, we're star-crossed. Like this is this. We are, how did he say it? I am your completion and he's your complement. So I'm the other half of you. And then we together go over here and that's your physical complement. And I was like, that makes so much sense. And so now we're to the point where I talk about Eros all the time. And my husband, he's not fazed because he's like, yeah, of course, please be filled up at the end of the night and like ready to be my wife and be the beautiful queen instead of being little crumbled pieces on the floor that I have to, after my long day, put together. Right? Like we're not two crumbled coffee cups coming together at the end of the night. Like, oh my God, I had the worst day, me too. And then we fall asleep drooling all over each other. He knows how to connect to his sacred feminine. I know how to connect to my sacred masculine. And when we come together, we are whole people. And then during, you know, coitus or during like, you know, sex or whatever, now we get to act out that physical. So it's like my husband is the surrogate for that masculine energy. I'm having this beautiful internal relationship, which is then being reflected in my physical relationship. He's having this beautiful internal relationship, which is being reflected, right? And so when we come together, that's why you see this. You're like, oh, you guys have the most amazing dynamic. Yes, because we're filled up first and then we come together, you see? So it has been such a game changer for me, for my clients, just such a different energy. Because when a woman is being held in the masculine frame, when she gets around a man, she's not like a, what is it, an isotope, a radioactive isotope where like this electron can jump over, you know? She's
Yeah.
so centered. If you think about it, like when you first start dating a guy and you go to his apartment and he's hanging out, you know, he's living with a couple of dudes and the house is a pigsty and you're in your cute little outfit. And what do? You want to put on your little apron. You want to clean the house for them. You want to play, you know, like, I got you flowers.
Yeah.
I cleaned the kitchen. It was disgusting. I didn't deep clean. Right?
Yeah.
Now fast forward to you're married to this guy and you're like, oh my God, this kitchen is disgusting. Like you haven't thrown pizza boxes out in forever. You and your friends are down in the basement. You don't even throw away your beer cans. What the hell is wrong with you? Same guy.
Yeah.
Couple decades later, right? And so when you get to tap into this feminine energy, you get to be the goddess. I'm 42 years old. I still get carded. I look younger now than I did when I was in my late 20s. I will show you pictures later. I will DM you pictures and you will think that I could be my own mother. I've reversed the aging process. I have reconnected the energy inside of me that's like that energy that you feel when a guy likes you and you're walking around the mall and he's like, does the head nod thing, you know, and he's calling you and your mom's like, George is on the phone and you're like, hello, George. And he's like, hey, Edwina, what's going on? How are you? And you're just like, ah. You have that energy inside of you all the time. That masculine energy is inside of you like, hey, goddess, I saw you today. You were amazing on that podcast. Oh my gosh, the way you handled that client, oh, next level. And you start to connect to that. And when you connect to that so consistently, you don't need anything around you.
Yeah.
It's all a bonus. That client signed up, great. That client didn't sign up, oh well, there's always someone in the pipeline because Daddy Universe is out there working for you to bring home that bacon so you can play in the field, so you can dream. He just wants you to dream. What do you want, goddess? What do you desire? What can I do for you? How can I give to you? Show me how good you can receive. And when you connect to that, especially as a sacral being, girl, there is nothing better than that feeling. Nothing. And it's not even a sexual feeling. It's not even in your lady parts. It's in your spine. It's in your soul.
I've got so many things that are like, my brain is like popcorn, and I'm still trying to get my mind around.
I know, I'm sorry.
So, no, don't. I love it. I love being stretched into different ways of thinking about things. And, you know, I was thinking, I think the very nature of the work that we do, and being, you know, I was a single mother with 4 children. My first husband actually left. I had 4 children, 8 and under. My baby was still 5 months old. And so my ability to do everything and need nobody is, you know, like so many of us, there's nothing I can't do. And I think when you've been in that space for a long time, where you just take care of business, you just get stuff done, the bills are paid, the food's bought, the kids are clean, they're at school, you know, like you run a business, it's all there.
Yeah.
50 Shades of Grey, when that came out, I can still remember, I was still a single mum at that stage. My kids were a little bit, oh no, they were actually still pretty young, really, in the grand scheme of things. It was nearly 11 years ago, but I was obsessed with it. And there was this side of me that was like, is this a little bit, you know, like what is
sub frenzy? That's called sub frenzy. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But it is that recognizing of like, I just want to be in that feminine space, and to have somebody look at me like that, hold me like that, take care of things, allow me to just be, because that didn't happen. And at that stage, I had no concept of masculine and feminine energy, and that we have both. And like that was language that didn't come along till a lot later. But I think about that now, and I look at my relationship with my husband now, and I still see where you know, there's so many years of, it's just easier if I get it done myself. So I do, you know, and I'm not good at stepping back. There's areas that I do, and there's still work to be done. And I can see where I allow him to really be that amazing masculine presence in my life, and where I put the pin in the balloon, for one of a better expression. But it is that, yeah, so understanding this more from your perspective feels very exciting. Like it's a whole new kind of doorway that's opening in my brain. I love it. So what's the question that I think is going to so where does, like, how does desire play a role in this? So you have this desire for something in your life, and if we look at it in terms of business or making money or the creation of something, which we think of as that's the masculine, it's the doing, it's the getting it done. How does it work with the way that ergogenics, is that the right way?
Aerogetics.
Aerogetics. So how does it work from the way that you teach?
Yeah. So on the most basic scale, we're going to say feminine and masculine, and we're not going to mean genders. So you could be, you know, a female in a female body and masculine and whatever. Like, let's let go of the genders for a moment. The core desire of the masculine is to give. The core desire of the feminine is to receive. We get this crossed a lot because we're a lot of ambitious women. We try to give in reciprocation of giving instead of receiving.
Yeah.
So just to kind of give you, you know, like a little 50 Shades example here. When you think about restraints and you think about BDSM, the BDSM world, we talk about restraints. There could be a misconception that restraints are there so a man can tie a woman up and be like, ha, 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 she can't move. Like, I'm turned on by the fact that I can do whatever I want to her. Yes, and what he's really turned on by is that she can't reciprocate. The reason that we use restraints, I know, for females,
he gets to give,
is because she cannot reciprocate. He just gets to give, and he gets to see her receive. She cannot stop herself from receiving because she can't cover herself. She can't stop. She can't turn over. So that is the essence of desire for a masculine. Now, in terms of your desires, the masculine wants to give. So in the relationship, the way you give is to have desires that can be given to. So the reciprocation on the part of the feminine is to dream, is to create. One of the things that I channeled from the sacred masculine is that you think that, like, the way that they describe, or people, patriarch, whatever, what do you call it? The theocracy describes God. It's like this benevolent man on a cloud, and you ask him what you want, and he looks at you and he pats you on your little head and he grants it because he's a good God. What if I told you that there's a symbiotic relationship between us and God, or us and the masculine, or us and the universe, and he can't make shit without us designing it? If we don't create from that feminine essence, from our desire, then he doesn't know what to create. This world that you see around you, this is the result of creation. And one of the things that he said to me in my channeling was, you named every fish, you painted every stripe on every animal. You're the one who decided what it was all going to look like. You don't remember, but I was there and you did that. And so when we reconnect to that empress energy, that wife of God, that's who we are. We are the goddess to the masculine energy. We are his end all be all. You know, you talk about the story of Sophia and Logos. They were one energy. And she's like, I want to see the world. I want to experience missing you. I want to experience distance. And he said, please don't go. But she did. And she fell. And when she fell to this planet, she didn't realize she wouldn't remember him. And he's been looking for her throughout time and space. And he finds her. She doesn't look up, but she doesn't know she's lost. And so we're all sitting here in these worlds, looking around going, I don't understand why I can't have this, or why God won't give me this. And he's knocking on the glass. Goddess, look up. Look up. It's like we woke up in the hospital and this gorgeous husband man is like, where do you want to go? To our house in the Maldives? Do you want to go to our house in Cancun? Do you want to go? We have houses all, yeah. Goddess, everything is ours. Everything belongs to you. You don't know who you are. You don't remember, but he does. And he's constantly reminding us and telling us and trying to be that energy. And he's like, just tell me what you want. I can make it happen like this. But we, like you said, now I never have been a single mom, but like I told you, I've been a mom who had a husband who did nothing to take care of the kids, to do anything because he was finding himself, who knows what. So I have been unsupported and felt very masculine and been the end all be all to my children. And there's this level of resentment that we're like, oh, I can't tell the universe what I desire because then they've got something on me. Because now I'm vulnerable. Because if they know what I desire, they can hold it back. If I go out to eat with a guy, I have to sleep with him because he paid for my dinner. What if I told you he doesn't want you to sleep with him? He wants to hear how good dinner was. He wants you to tell him what it tastes like. He wants you to tell him that it was the best dinner ever, that you loved the glass of wine. He doesn't want to get you in bed. He wants you to receive. And we are immune even to receiving as women who do it all, who stay in this masculine energy. We don't have to do that anymore. It doesn't mean that we don't get to be badasses and have businesses if that's what we're up to, or own corporations, or have shares in companies, or orchestrate incredible charities or wonderful things. But it does mean that there is a frame that's sitting there going, baby girl, what do you want? What do you desire? What is on your heart? And then let's say your husband, it's the middle of the night and you're like, I feel like a snack. And he's like, okay, well, what do you feel like? You're like, I don't know, surprise me. So he goes off to the store and he's driving and all of a sudden he looks over and there you are in the car next to him. And he's like, what are you doing? You're like, well, I wasn't sure if you were actually going to go. What? Or you bump into him in the aisle. Well, I didn't know if you really knew what kind of snacks I wanted. Are you kidding me? We've been married for how long? You didn't think I knew what kind? You would never do that, right? You would never second guess that. But we do that with the universe all the time. When the sacred masculine says, tell me what you want and let me have it. Give it up to me. Give it to me and let it go and come back to your feminine. And we're like, but what if you don't? But what if you suddenly forget? But what if I told you, but you didn't really listen? We're talking about the cosmic king of the universe. You really think that his one queen, the devotion of his life, that he's not going to remember what she desired? It's not even possible.
I can think of so many examples that, it is, there's two things. One is the core question that I ask in my work is, what do you want? Because that's where everything is created from. And it is such a hard question for so many people to answer. It's like the idea, we've been indoctrinated with this idea that to allow somebody to want something is greedy. There's so much work that goes into breaking the idea that, but I'm grateful for everything I have, and I should, I shouldn't want more. And I have this and I have that. And it's like, yeah, you can be grateful for what you have and want more. It's okay. But also I talk a lot about service, and it is such an honor to serve somebody else, but it is such a privilege to receive. And that's not, there's a massive difference between entitlement, receiving with no gratitude, and privilege and understanding the privilege of receiving.
Receiving is service to the masculine. Like when you understand that you receiving is how you serve the masculine, it's like, it's a 2-for-1 deal.
Yes, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's where I was going. It's
Sorry.
No, absolutely. It just amplifies the message that we really get to just embody. And if you missed it, AmyLee touched on it, but we let's ground back into the knowing that this is about embodying the Empress. The Empress is the Earth Mother archetype. She is the birther and creator of new life on earth, whether it is babies or projects or a beautiful garden or a divinely created space to live in, or, you know, it is this creation energy. It is literally why we're here as women. So it's, you know, coming back all the time to understanding how we embody these different principles is really the heart of this whole series. So what, you know, I think we've just touched on it, but what blocks this? How are we continuing to block this, and how can we make it as simple as possible for the women tuning in to recognize how and when they are?
Well, if you've ever read the book Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about sex transmutation. He talks about how masculine and feminine coming together is manifestation. That's what it is. It's the giving and the receiving, right? It's like creation. And there are powers that be, which who they are and what they are is really irrelevant, that recognize that when we come together in this way, that we can no longer be subverted, that we can't be subjugated, that we can't be controlled, that we are not as pliable. And so throughout history, different mechanisms have been inserted in order to create this chasm. Now, I'm actually writing a book about this right now. It's a fiction book with a little splash of smut in it. And it's basically about this idea of all these different ways that the masculine and feminine have been created at odds from each other. So the most basic one that I was downloaded was Adam and Eve in the garden, right? This idea that man has to watch his back because his feminine is going to give him bad intel, right? Like he can't trust her because she might end up getting him kicked out of the garden. What does she know? Well, the truth of the matter, if you ever looked at some of like the Egyptian statues, you can see that feminine actually has her arm around the masculine, because what used to happen back before recorded time was that women are very intuitive. We're incredibly intuitive. And a man would actually procure the company of a woman, not just to procreate and have babies and all that stuff, but also to acquire the wisdom that she had in her body, right? So like temples and things like that, and sacred sexual experiences, but also just her premonitions and her prophecies and her ability to see things. And when things like the Roman Catholic Church and all these things came along and were trying to subjugate people, well, these women saw this coming a mile away. They knew that this was going to happen, and they started to warn their men, and these men were up in arms about it. So they figured out really quick, we've got to separate these two. We've got to create a story that tells them that they can't trust each other, because otherwise it's going to be them against us. And with her wisdom and, you know, in his knowledge, we're fucked. And so they had to create that chasm.
Yeah.
So what did they do? They told us, you know, they told men, your wives are crazy. They're witches. They don't know what they're talking. They're dealing with the devil. Don't listen to them. Listen to the church. And if your wife tells you something, the church knows better. And so men stopped listening to their wives, and women were no longer being treated like the equals that they were. Separate, different, but equal, right? Different, but equal. And so their voices were drowned out, and they were no longer being listened to. And this was passed on through time. And men don't listen to us. Men just want to subjugate us. They just want us to be barefoot and pregnant. And so we created these lies and this systematic quarreling, this Hatfields and McCoys between men and women through time and space, that have rooted themselves in people's DNA, to the point where in the North, where I'm from, women and men compete for the same jobs. I mean, how many women, you and I are both in the coaching space. How many times have you seen a woman brag about out earning her husband, as if that's some kind of a thing to be proud of? You're on the same team, doofus. Like, shouldn't you be like, oh my gosh, this is more money, like we're making it together? Yeah. So that's one of them. The other one we just talked about a little bit was vulnerability, right? That spiteful feminine. There's the empowered feminine and there's the spiteful feminine. There's the in spite of the male, right? The glass ceiling girls, the ones that talk about the rise of the feminine, like there's no collaboration in there whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's sad because you're getting half of the puzzle. You're getting half of the, it's like if you only had your one arm and your other leg, how different do you move having your whole self? Right. And when we shut ourselves off from that part of us, that's where we start to run into trouble. That's where we start to feel rudderless. You know, it's like, oh, the divine feminine, and I'm so relaxed, and but what are you surrendering to? You're surrendered to what? The universe. Well, guess what that is? If it's bringing things into your life, its role in your life is the masculine.
Yeah. Yeah. I can hear conversations that will be going on within the minds of women listening to this. And, you know, I feel
Not
like
for everybody.
Well, I disagree. Anything that creates conversation and intrigue and questioning is, you know, like there's nothing that I will ever say that I expect everybody to agree with. But if it gets us thinking about things differently, it's gold. Oh my gosh, we live in such a homogenized society. Everybody's sort of thinking and saying, and yeah, no, I'm a big proponent of breaking all that up. And I think one of the things that I think is so powerful to understand is that we teach people how to treat us. And from, you know, there is programming that has gone in from being young girls in a society that indoctrinates us with certain beliefs. But at some point we have to stop blaming and start taking responsibility for teaching men how to treat us, and they can take responsibility for that themselves in how the women in their lives treat them. But we do teach people how to treat us. And so if there is this feeling of domination rather than equality, then we get to take responsibility for that. And at the same time, take responsibility for not making it a one-upmanship conversation all the time about, well, now, you know, like it's when I say together we rise, I mean together we rise, not just women rise and therefore men, you know, become
It's our turn.
That Barbie movie, I reluctant to bring that up because I've brought it up before, but oh my gosh, that was appalling. The messaging.
Oh yeah, I didn't watch it. I could tell right away it was not going to be my thing.
Yeah.
But again, that's part of that oppression, right? Like that's multi-million-dollar movie. That's part of that propaganda to keep those two people apart.
Yeah. Yeah. So bringing it together. So I would love to have some kind of experience of how, you know, in my mind, the idea of these the polarity of the two different voices, I have yet to find in my mind how these come together. Do you feel like there's an experience that you could give us? Is it something that tell me what you're thinking.
Yeah, I can teach you the energetic breath if you'd like. That's usually what I do. So if you're somewhere, okay, so I'll tell you a story first. One time I was at my neighbor's house. She had all her friends there. I'm the neighbor, so I'm not friends with all her friends. She's with all her friends, and my kids are all there and they're eating, and I'm trying to eat and I'm freaking out because I have social anxiety. My husband's there, but he's not paying attention to the kids. So I'm paying attention to the kids and I'm super resentful. And I'm like, oh, like, you know, I always have to do this. Why can't I just relax? And all stressed out.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Eros is in my ear and he says, Goddess, stop. Get into your body. We're going to do the energetic breath. And I'm like, right now, right here? He's like, absolutely right here. So what you do is you kind of sit or stand with your legs kind of shoulder width apart. And just try to find
what I might do. I'm just going to interrupt you for 2 seconds. What I might do is I'm going to change the view so it's just you, and when we're finished I'll come back and then
okay.
That work? All
okay.
Right.
It shouldn't be very long. But okay.
That's fine.
Okay. Put my sexy voice on. Just kidding. Okay. Good. All right. So what you want to do is you want to find the portal in your body. And I say the portal because some people are offended by the word womb or womb space or whatever. You want to find the space, the hollow space in your body that feels like kind of like the kiln, the urn, the oven. So inside of yourself. And you want to just relax your legs and allow yourself to connect to that space. And as you do that, the first thing you're going to do is take in a breath through your nose. But as you do it, you're going to imagine that everything that you desire, your abundance, the joy that you want, the experiences are going to enter your body through your portal. And then, sorry, I'm trying to explain it and do it at the same time. So you're going to pull it into your body and then you're going to hold it. And as you're holding that breath, feel the filling up of your body from the masculine. Feel it in your hands, in your legs, in the tips of your fingers. You're holding that energy at the top. Just feel how filled up you are and how delicious that feels and pleasurable. That energy mixing with the energy in your portal. And then exhale through the mouth, open in gratitude. This is, you're thanking the universe for what's already yours. Thank you. So we breathe in through the portal. Hold it at the top. Sorry, hold it at the top. Masculine energy just coursing through you. Oh, goddess, do you love that? How that feels? Can you feel me inside of you? Can you feel me touching every last morsel of you? Bringing you all of the abundance, the joy, the desire, everything that you want. I love to watch you receive it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And then exhaling through the mouth in gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this to me. Again, breathing in through the portal. Holding it at the top. He loves to watch you receive. Oh, goodness. Does it feel good to receive? The money, the experiences, the people, the attention, the magnetism, the opportunity, the trips, everything. He just loves to sit there and watch you. Oh, you take that abundance so good. And then exhaling. Thank you. You can do that as many times as you need to. If you're stressed out, if you're frustrated, if you're in a bad mood, eyes on me. And that means we come back to center. We do the energetic breath. He breathes all of that delicious abundance into you. You hold it. You get used to feeling the abundance in your body. We don't just get rid of it. We don't just go pay it to a coach. We don't just go dump it into a new coat or a purse. We take time to feel it in our body. Can we hold the receiving that we just got? That delicious feeling. It just, it's just right there. And then exhaling in total surrender.
I think that's so fun and beautiful. Got the just going on.
Yeah, the giddy schoolgirl thing is usually a thing after doing energetics.
The giddy schoolgirl thing. Oh, that sums it up perfectly. So I've got one final question that I'd like to ask you, but before I do that, is there anything that I've missed? Is there anything that you feel like you're called you'd like to add to this conversation?
After I give you the thing that I told you I was going to give you, I want to hear from you after that. I'm going to give you that little, you especially, not everybody, but I'm going to give it to you, that little gift. And I just want to see how it works for you. I'm excited.
I'm excited. Well, and you have got a gift for our audience. Did you want to take a minute to tell them what that is? Yes.
Yes. So I did a 5-day masterclass all about energetics, connecting to your own sacred masculine. There's all kinds of yummy astrology pieces that you get to learn how you can connect to him, knowing more about his personality, who he is, how he's meant to show up in your world, how you're meant to connect to him, what your relationship with him is supposed to be like. So all those juicy things, as well as a little bit more about the mythos of this, is available in the 5-day energetic experience that I'm giving to all of you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So
Look at you biting your finger.
I'm so looking forward to tuning into your work more. I've got a sense of it. I've heard you talking about it online. I'm like, what? And now I've got a deeper sense of it. I'm just so excited.
Rabid,
So if I was to ask your intuitive knowing, you know, where you are and what you're doing when you just feel flooded with that beautiful sense of the Empress, with peace, beauty, harmony, where are you? What are you doing?
I'm connecting to the feminine energy of women from all time. I am every single one of them. I am Mary Magdalene. I am Inanna. I am Artemis. I see myself carrying the thread of femininity throughout all space and time. And I'm knitting her together like paper dolls. And I'm allowing myself to absorb all of her good points, all the great things she did, all the mistakes that she made. And I'm recognizing that in being her, I am the goddess. I am the goddess in all of her forms, as the empress, as the child, as the queen, as the what do you call it? The crone. I am all of them at once. And I get to embody any and all of them at any time.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about being in the liminal space between all of this and allowing myself to stay in desire-based consciousness rather than climax-based consciousness where it's like, I got to get this thing. I got to do this thing. It's like, you're trying to get this orgasm. But like, what if every moment is a little orgasm? What if it's like, what do I want to do next? What do I feel like doing now? What do I want to do with the next moment? And you let every moment be the journey. That's where I find myself when I really, truly embody the Empress.
That's a beautiful, beautiful answer. I feel, as you were saying, I feel like there's one more thing that I just want to highlight in this conversation, because I feel like it's something that, you know, it just needs to be said. Because when we think about the Empress and all the beauty and the being in nature and the flowers and the abundance and the creating, and there's so much beauty and gentleness and goodness and truth in that. But I also just want to bring the awareness back to the extraordinary power and wisdom that comes in the dark times. This is not about all sunshine and rainbows. It's, you know, through listening to AmyLee's story, you know, like this wisdom came during a 40-day fast when her husband essentially removed himself from their relationship. And it was really hard. It was a dark time. And we all have these dark times. But the wisdom comes in knowing not to wish them away, to look for the wisdom that's coming in those experiences. Because as empresses, there are always going to be dark times coming. And I think in the world right now, there's all sorts of chaos and things going on that are going to churn us up and tip us upside down. And the way to right ourselves up is to look for the wisdom in these experiences. Because when we find the wisdom in these experiences, the gold and the magic is always on the other side. So that's where I will leave this conversation. Thank you so much, AmyLee. I have loved this conversation. I adore you to bits, and I hope that we get to do this again soon. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
All right, beautiful souls, that is it from us for this interview, and I will see you again next time. Much love and bye for now.